Thank you, Mark. I won't try to do a synthesis about all the day. I think we've had a lot of information in our heads. Just a few wrap-up messages that I would like to share with you. And just after that, we will move to the questions that have been shared with the help of the tool. Thank you, Anne-Sophie. So we will show them afterwards, and I think we could just exchange on these questions. So today has been a long journey. We started from the Code of Hammurabi, which was long ago, a first kind of insurance. I've never thought about it this way, but I think it was one first piece of scripture. So that's interesting to see that it's also a first piece of insurance. And we've been to car insurance and house insurance. And I think these different points of view are very interesting, not to just focus on our agricultural prospects. But what I realized today is that Marc Raineau, that I respect in other ways, you lied, or at least you were wrong twice, and I will explain. First, from the beginning, you always say it's all about removing useless pesticide application. And I think you're wrong, because there is no useless application, because they always have some kind of interest, a social interest maybe. People get reassured when they make these treatments. And that's why it's so hard to remove them. So they have an interest, a bit like us, maybe when we took some medicines and we know that these medicines are useless. But that's the importance of a behavioral approach, and you've been very smart on this, that you tried to gather a community and even behavioral economists to think on these so-called useless applications that are not that useless, but it's still a very good question. But you lied to us a second way when you said pesticides were cheap. Well, Christian said, I think, 60,000 euros per kilogram for eliminated pesticides. So they are not cheap, at least for the society. So it really gets us to the question of what risks and who bears the risks. And especially for pesticides, yes, we always think of the risk of having a very bad yield at the end of the year for the farmers, but we don't include the people who live around, the society, and the other kinds of costs. So that leads us to the question that Mathilde raised in her very interesting list of questions about what risks. And what I see in this question is it's all about governance about these risks. First, what do we want to ensure? Exactly. What kind of risks? Okay. Do we want to ensure revenues? We've talked about that. Do we want to ensure practice change? We've had a very nice example this morning with Alexis saying, okay, if we want it to work, we have to keep it simple and transparent. So let's go to parametric insurance. But at the end of the day, we saw that parametric insurance may be less accepted by farmers in the other way. So that's an interesting thing to see, to know what we are going to insure exactly and in what way. Second question, who will contribute to this insurance? And we can think of it both on an intensive and extensive margins, because we may want to have a large community of farmers that get insured and that contribute to the system. So that was the Italian example. It was really funny to see that the contribution that is asked just 0.1%. So it's very low, but you make it cheap to have them all, as I say, and it's a good behavioral approach too, to have all your people, and then maybe when people are getting used to the system, then you can think, okay, that's another question of governance. Do we want to have higher contributions or higher indemnities? Then we have to raise the contributions to the... That's an interesting thing. But apart from farmers, maybe the other stakeholders in the supply chain, we've seen that in many examples that we had, public sector was there. European Union, regions like in VTI. But what about the private sector and all the stakeholders in the chain, in the value chain? And the last point is who finally constructs these insurance schemes? And I've been very interested and honored that Living Labs were cited in several times of the day, because with VTREV here in Aquitaine, we had this experiment where farmers with insurers co-designed the contract insurance that farmers want to have, so that they could try Mark's device, because at the beginning they wouldn't go to these recommendations unless they had a good insurance. So maybe it was the first time in insurance history that farmers could design their insurance contract. It doesn't have to be this way all the time, but who in fact co-constructs and who is impacted by the risks and the insurance and the indemnity is a good question to know who could be who could participate to this debate. And I take benefit of it to make a small ad about this forum. It's about the International Forum on Agroecosystem Living Labs. So agroecosystem living labs are typically these kind of ecosystems where the green insurance for VTI had been invented. And it's now you know the place because it's going to be right here. And there's a few seats available. So please rush, and I'd be very happy to see you there. And maybe as a last point, I think we all seek to invent some kinds of insurance that can be part of a market. And we see that it's very complicated in some ways because risks are rising. We think of climate change, we think of many, and maybe if we have more people getting insured, yes, you have more contributions, but in the same time, it can be more indemnities too. We are in a context of global change. But what is very interesting to see in many examples, and it was very obvious from Cécile's speech at the end, is that insurance can at least in any way be a means of exploring the universe of possibilities, both for farmers, because they can try new practices, because they feel reassured, and then they can discover more the universe of possibilities. And it was really obvious with VTI experiments where wine growers really thought there was a threshold that they couldn't go beyond, and they discovered that at least they could. So even if the device failed 1 year out of the 4, now they couldn't say, okay, I can't go below that threshold, because they know now that they've been under this threshold at least once. So it means there is a possibility. And it's, so I'm a researcher, and I think these kind of insurance schemes, even if they are transitory or experimental or very highly subsidized, they can be a way that researchers work with farmers and try new practices, because now there is a safety net, and we take into consideration the fact that farmers want to socialize the risk that they have when they try new practices. So I've been finally very interested by all the experience that we all represent here in this room with Australia, United Kingdom, France. I think we could go on with this very nice network, and well, building a new network is, I think, a very good plan for someone I know that will be useless as a pesticide application very soon. So I really hope that we can build a network and that, Mark, you will still be on the game. And I just want you to get applauded for all the work that you've done. And maybe now we can move to the questions that have been sent during the day. We won't go through them all, but are they all here or are there several pages? I guess. Il y a plusieurs pages, hein, c'est ça? Non, elles sont toutes là? Very good. So, well, we won't go through them all, but if some people feel interested by some questions or have pieces of answers or want to add on these questions, please take a mic, raise your hands, or just take a mic.
Maybe the people who wrote the question or the points may explain or ask the questions, or how do you want to proceed?
I think some of them were very direct questions, for example, eligibility conditions of IST to cap subsidies. I don't know if Alexis is still there. I guess, yes, your system was compatible with CAP, but if you can...
It's actually not even compatible. It's what the regulation promotes. So it's even more than that. But the CAP subsidies have to be included in the income or gross margin index that you calculate. It's considered part of the income in that regard. You could argue about it, but I think it makes sense. So yeah, it is 100% compatible. It's actually promoted by the regulation.
The third one was mine. It's for the insurers in the room and the brokers. Would that make sense to try to create a package where you sell only one contract that includes both the private insurance parts and the mutual fund contribution? Could that work to reduce the paperwork for the farmers?
Any broker comment? Yeah? Julien.
Well, a simple answer is yes. It makes sense to bring efficiencies into the sales process. And we come across this many times when people try and to have multiple points of contact with farmers for insurance. And Peter said it right. Everybody hates insurance, for goodness sake. You know, who wants to pay insurance premium for your car or your house? It's terrible stuff. So to minimize the friction and facilitate the understanding, and also combining products, if that's possible, makes a lot of sense to me. And as a broker, we like to be thinking we're being adaptive and sensible in the way we engage with our customers, and give them a one-stop shop type of thinking. It makes great sense. What I don't know, if there is any regulatory barrier between selling an insurance package with a mutual fund contribution. They fall under separate areas of regulation according to the country you happen to be in. So with that little caveat, saying is that a complication? But that's also as much a complication about product design as it is about distribution. But Michael.
So European insurance market, when it comes to agriculture, is quite mature, but when we looked at other countries where there is no regulation or no effective working insurance scheme subsidized, most of the insurance coverage are distributed through those packages. It can come from the inputs provider. It can come from the banks, the financial institutions that are requiring some collateral through an insurance policy for the farmers to get their loans, to buy the machinery that enables them to expand. So those packages are working fine, but it's always very regulated. And to answer Julian's point, in France you cannot, you have to divide such product from your core offer. So it's possible, cannot be mandatory though, but it's working this way in many parts of the world.
Okay. Two other questions about moral hazards and data and climatic change. I don't know if someone wants to have a special comment about this. I think we said and we have all in mind, but it's nice to have it written here that data is a crucial information to develop these kind of tools, parametric tools. So yeah, and we saw that I don't know how you can manage in Italy to have all this survey of the growers, the farmers. I think it's quite a job because and to evaluate the damage, we had this experiment in the vine, in the experiment in Buzet, and it's very difficult to assess the damage and the area which is destroyed. And yes, maybe the system will allow to measure this with machines in some times, but for now they are not so precise also, so it's very difficult. I don't know if there are any people who want to say something. It's the moment. Otherwise, I will just say a few words for tomorrow. First, 2 lives, that's not so bad. Okay, are there any other discussion? Okay.